Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Kathy Andriozzi, and I'm the founder of the Tori Lynn Andriozzi Foundation. I had been a longtime resident of West Warwick, and I have a deep fondness for this town and its people. Recently, in an email with the town manager, Mark Knott, I said, West Warwick may be 9th in size and population, but time and time again, this community has proved that it is number 1 in heart. And so I really feel honored that we are able to be hosted in this town today. You know, I'd also like to thank some of the people that I see in the room for joining us, certainly Colonel Levine, Major Archambault, and Major Sinertia. We have Chief Barone from the West Warwick Fire Department, Sid Wardell from the Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association. We have Karen Tarasevich, Superintendent of West Warwick Schools, Sergeant Wes Pennington from the Rhode Island State Police. We have representatives from RIDOT here. Andy Tanch from the program coordinator is here, and from MAD Rhode Island we have our executive director, Sean Cassidy, and we have our victim advocate, Francie Montauk. And we have, and forgive me for not recognizing everyone, but in this room are so many of the key players that work in prevention and that work in highway safety. And we thank you for your partnership. You know, I also look around the room and first of all, thank you for this tremendous outpouring. I see people of different ages and backgrounds and occupations, and I see adults, you know, parents of families, and families that have a lot of different backgrounds and varied interests. You know, some families might be involved in music and art, and some families are hockey families, and some families are softball and martial art families. Same but different. But we are more alike than we are different. There is more that binds us than divides us. And one of the commonalities, you know, that we have is that we all have dreams and goals, and we want to achieve them, and we want to see our children grow up, and we want to see them thrive and be who they're supposed to be and make their mark on the world. We want to see all of these dreams come true. One of the other things that we all have in common is that we use our roadways. We're all on the road at one point or another, from the moment that we're born and we're coming home from the hospital to the moment that we're on our way to our final resting place. We should be able to expect that when we go on our roads and we reach our destination, that we're then able to turn around and make it back home to our communities, to our families, and our loved ones. But sadly, we know that that is not always the reality. Now, April is Distracted Driving Month, once referred to as Alcohol Awareness Month. I mean, truly, it's all impaired driving. And impaired driving is a problem. And so in this month of April, what we try to do is we try to bring attention, we try to bring awareness to the dangers that can occur on the road, to the carnage that happens, and more importantly, I shouldn't say more importantly, but very important, the steps that we can take to prevent it from ever happening. I can tell you assuredly, though, that for families that have been directly touched by impaired driving, they don't need a month to make them aware, because they are aware with every single fiber of their being, every moment, every hour, every minute, every second. They're also aware of what one person and one choice can do. 19 years ago, my family was impacted by the choice of an individual. And in that moment, that crash occurred, all of our hopes and dreams and our promises for the future were gone. On March 26, 2003, my then 12-year-old daughter was walking home from her school bus with her 14-year-old brother. and just feet from cutting into their own backyard, their lives intersected with a careless and reckless individual driving under the influence. 19 years later, I can still feel everything about that day, that moment. I remember, I can see it, I can feel it, I can smell it, I can hear it. And it doesn't take much for you to go back to that moment, for you to relive. You know, we were home that day, and so we heard the screams. And somehow we found ourselves running out the back door and downstairs and across a yard and jumping a fence. And I will never forget the images. I'll never forget the frantic ambulance ride. And I'll never forget the moment my daughter's heart stopped. The visual is emblazoned forever. It's emblazoned in all of the days and weeks and months that we waited to find out that Tori would survive. And survive she did. And we are incredibly thankful for that. But what I can tell you is that my daughter will never be the same little girl that left for school that morning. She was a world champion martial artist. She was a straight A student, not because it became easy to her, but because she worked really hard at it. She gave the greatest hugs. She had the best laugh. She told the corniest jokes. And she was a champion for the underdog. Tori was always trying to fix things. And at 12 years old, her favorite movie was Pay It Forward. Tori now, 19 years later, lives in a minimally conscious state. You know, my little karate kid who would do round-off back tucks across a floor, and while she was sparring would say, sorry, sorry, sorry. She can't walk, she can't talk, and she can't eat. Tori lives in this minimally conscious state, hovering between worlds. That's what a choice can do. So today, we can make a choice. We can make a choice to spread awareness. We can make a choice to change the culture. And we can make a choice to say no more, no more. You know, Rhode Island is a small state with a big problem. But one of the things that we have on our side is that we have tremendously dedicated and passionate individuals who all work tirelessly to eradicate this problem. And right now I have the pleasure to introduce one of those individuals to you. I am proud to work alongside her, call her peer advocate and friend from youth-driven RISAS, Becky White.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rebecca White, and I'm the program coordinator of a traffic safety and leadership program called Youth Driven. We are led by the Rhode Island Students Assistance Services and supported by Rhode Island DOT Office on Highway Safety. We educate and empower youth from across Rhode Island all about areas of traffic safety, including drunk driving, drug-impaired driving, seatbelt safety, speeding, and distracted driving. Youth Driven is a year-round high school program, and our kickoff event is an educational summit scheduled for August 2nd through the 4th at Bryant University. Over the course of a 3-day summit, high school students from across Rhode Island will learn components of traffic safety with a focus of substance misuse prevention strategies and safe decision-making skills. Students will have the opportunity to develop their innate leadership skills and keep themselves and their schools and communities safe and strong. School and community teams will create an action plan and they will take back to their schools and communities to implement over the course of a school year. The Youth Driven Summit is free to attend and is open to any Rhode Island high school student, including 8th graders going into their freshman year. To learn more, you can register and learn more on our website at www.youthdriven.org. But my main message today is to remind all Rhode Islanders that April is National Distracted Driving Awareness Month, and that we all play a role in making sure that while we are driving a vehicle, that we are focused on one thing: driving. Anyone can cause a major car crash, and you don't have to be impaired by drugs or alcohol. You could simply be distracted while driving. Many of us have seen distracted drivers on our roads doing a multitude of tasks like holding their phones, eating, doing their makeup, reading, listening to music loudly, or even simply just having too many people in the vehicle at once. I could share with you endless facts and statistics about distracted driving and why it's not safe. I could tell you to stop distracted driving because it's dangerous, but what will that impact? Most of us are aware of how dangerous it is and continues to be on our roads. We have all heard or even given some of these excuses while distracted driving. I'm good at multitasking. I only look at my phone at red lights. I have too much going on, and I have to use my phone in the car. Oh, I've been texting and driving for years, and nothing bad has ever happened to me. So what do you say to those excuses? You could use the analogy that and say something like this. You wouldn't send a text message while you were using a table saw, would you? You wouldn't want your surgeon on their phone distracted while they're performing your surgery, would you? All of these dangerous tasks that require our full attention also applies to driving. We need to remember that for most of us, driving is one of the most dangerous things we do every single day. The moment we get behind the wheel, we need to take responsibility for our actions and just drive. While driving, we are constantly making decisions without even realizing it. It is estimated that every 2 minutes, a typical driver makes 400 observations, 40 decisions, and makes at least one mistake. Going back to my original question of what would you say to someone who makes the excuse for distracted driving? Well, I would say this: you don't want to know what it feels like to lose a loved one in a car crash. In 1999, I was on the way to the mall with my mother, Marcia Bowman, and my friend Katie DeCubulis when we were struck from behind by a drunk driver, pushing us across Route 4. My mother and friend did not survive. That night was the beginning of my new life. My life before the crash was gone. Images of the wakes and funerals for both my mother and my friend are burned into my memory forever. Our families, friends, and community was impacted forever due to one person's choice to drive drunk, drugged, and distracted. And on the day of Matthew's funeral, when I saw all of those hockey players' sticks held high, that visual hit me incredibly hard, as I know it did for many of us. I thought to myself, this shouldn't still be happening. Young people shouldn't still be dying on our roads due to others' poor decisions to not drive safely. And it has to stop. It takes all of us. We all need to lead by example and not drive distracted together. Let us set good examples for our friends, families, kids, and not touch our phones while we're driving. Let's give ourselves enough time to get to where we need to go so we're not multitasking in our cars. Let's set our GPS and playlist before we even set our car into drive. These simple little things can help prevent car crashes on our roads and help save lives. April is National Distracted Driving Awareness Month, but truly, we need everyone all year round to make safe choices while driving and not driving distracted. We can't take these chances with our own lives and with the lives of those sharing our roads. We also can't take for granted the time we have with the people we love. We truly don't know if and when you'll see them again. And we need to remember that we're not invincible. So together, let's make good choices while driving. Let's lead by example and take care of each other on the roadways. Thank you.
Choices. And the impact goes on and on. It is a ripple effect, and it's generational. It truly is. Our next speaker is Diana Gugliotta. Diana is the Senior Manager of Public Affairs at AAA Northeast. Diana develops and oversees AAA's traffic safety education and outreach programs, and she serves as a regional advocate for the club's legislative efforts in traffic safety. Diana's contributions to traffic safety are endless. She is a legend. And we are so fortunate to work with her and to benefit from her commitment. Her dedication knows no boundaries. Diana?
We have a problem in our very small state, like Kathy said earlier, and it's everyone's problem. I'm going to share a few statistics that I beg all Rhode Island drivers to reflect on. On average, 30% of our nation's roadway fatalities are caused by an impaired driver. But last year in Rhode Island, 42% of our roadway fatalities involved impaired driving. This grim statistic isn't new. In fact, over the past decade, Rhode Island ranks far above the national average. Based on data from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration from 2009 till 2020, we know that most of Rhode Island's alcohol-related fatalities involve a driver or a motorcycle operator with a blood alcohol concentration at or above 0.08. These are motorists who made a choice to operate a vehicle seriously impaired. In many cases, repeat offenders are the ones causing tragedies. And so we ask today, and almost every day, how and why does this continue to happen? Although Rhode Island ranks among the top third of states with the highest percentage of fatalities caused by impaired driving, our law to prosecute repeat offenders is one of the weakest in the nation. While some states like Massachusetts can look back at an offender's driving record over their lifetime, Rhode Island's current law only allows a look back of 5 years. I want to thank Senators Reptakis, Lombardi, Sosnowski, Anderson, DeMario, and West Warwick's District 9 Senator John Burke, as well as Representatives Amore, Craven, Henrys, and Speakman for sponsoring bills to strengthen our impaired driving laws. We call on members of our General Assembly to take action. We also need them to prepare and pay attention to what is coming. As Rhode Island considers the legalization of cannabis for recreational use, consider the impact that it will have on traffic safety. Looking at other states that have legalized cannabis long before us, we see a trend. Research from the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety indicates that in the state of Washington, one of the first 2 states in our nation to legalize recreational cannabis, the proportion of fatally injured drivers who tested positive for active THC doubled after their state legalized marijuana. That's a trend that has persisted since December of 2012. The average number of active THC positive drivers in that state increased by 132%. We will need more law enforcement, more officers certified as drug recognition experts as a countermeasure, and that is going to require funding. We also require more education around the issue of drugged driving. At AAA, we offer a program called Shifting Gears, the blunt truth of marijuana impaired driving, at no cost to communities. Endorsed by Brown University's School of Public Health, this program has reached tens of thousands of high school students in Rhode Island to educate this new generation of drivers on the risks of impaired driving, particularly on marijuana impaired driving. Thanks to the Rhode Island State Police and troopers like Sergeant Pennington, who's here with us today, a trooper attends every single one of these programs. In every presentation, they explain to our state's youth the impaired driving laws and offer their personal testimonies on the tragedies that they have had to respond to, the realities of having to protect innocent people, sometimes by blocking roadways, blocking impaired drivers from entering roadways with their own vehicles, sometimes even their own bodies. The Department of Transportation, law enforcement agencies, educators and advocates cannot solve this problem alone. Believe me, we have tried and we continue to try very hard, but it will take all of us. Please plan ahead for transportation or designated driver every single time you know substances will be consumed. There are no acceptable excuses. And finally, I'd like to address the victims and their families who have joined us today. I've been holding Kevin McDonald on our hearts. And just in reading and hearing about Olivia Passaretti and Matthew Dennison, I've realized that there are many common characteristics between these young people. They were leaders. They are leaders. They were courageous and unafraid to be who God created them to be, taking on challenges and leadership roles at very young ages. So I'm calling on the adults, the administrators, the legislators, to remember those outstanding leadership qualities in those teenagers as we take on this battle against impaired driving. We often say that living in such a small state, there's just 1 degree of separation between all of us. And we never feel that more deeply than when senseless tragedies happen to innocent people. The ripple effect is felt very deeply here in the Ocean State. We have hockey sticks by our doors at my house at home to let your families know, Matthew know, Kevin know that we are on your team. And whether you're a member of the West Warwick community or the East Greenwich community, what unites all of us is the determination to seek justice, to protect innocent lives, and to prevent the pain that families and friends must endure as the consequence of selfish actions. The definition of an avenger is someone determined to punish a wrong with the idea of seeking justice done. And I think Olivia would be proud to know that we are on her team too. May your innocent children know that they have transformed advocates into avengers. Thank you.
Clearly, people feel when there is a tragedy. As adults, the most that we can hope for sometimes for our children when we're not with them is that they're surrounded by positive, caring adults, someone who can be a mentor. And one such mentor is here today. I'd like to introduce to you Justin Lake, the head coach of the West Warwick Exeter West Greenwich hockey team.
Good afternoon. My name is Justin Lake. I stand here before you today dressed as a West Warwick police officer. But recently, I've been more than just that. I speak to you as the head coach of the West Warwick Exeter West Greenwich High School hockey team. The Webster Dictionary defines the word coach as one who instructs players in the fundamentals of sports and directs the team's strategy. While that is what I agreed to when I took this position as the high school hockey coach, I quickly learned that it was much more than that. A high school coach is a teacher, a social worker, a psychologist, a mentor, a role model, and more importantly this year, a big brother. Since the integration of the West Warwick, Exeter West Greenwich co-op team in 2010, our team has lived by the motto, 3 towns, 2 schools, and 1 family, with Exeter, West Greenwich, and West Warwick all being combined. The players, past and present, have grown to become more than just players. To become brothers and sisters on and off the ice. On February 12th, 2022, around 9 p.m., our hockey family took the biggest center ice blindsided hit that we've ever had. Our captain, Matt Dennison, and co-captain, Kevin McDonald, were struck head-on by an alleged drunk driver. When I was first notified of this accident by Kevin's father, I was sitting in the passenger side of my patrol vehicle, teaching a new patrol officer that we had just recently hired how to be the best he can be for this department. Told that officer to pull over to the side of the road and not move. Mr. McDonald told me all he knew was that Kevin and Matt were involved in a serious motor vehicle accident somewhere in Exeter, but he didn't know where. His voice sounded desperate, scared, and nervous. He was looking to me for help to navigate him through this horrible time. Those of you that know me or work with me, I usually have an answer for everything or something to say. Not knowing what to do or what to say, I told him to try and remain calm, and I'll call him right back. My phone wasn't hung up for more than 2 seconds. It rang again. This time it was Mr. Dennison. Mr. Dennison was also looking for answers. In this profession, it becomes natural to be able to find those answers and tell them. This one was different. I had done. He was one of my own that was hurt. I once again told him to start driving to the scene, the last known location he knew, and I'll get more answers for you. I quickly found out that it was a serious motor vehicle accident, and that the boys were trapped inside the vehicle, and they were in critical condition. And one Rhode Island State Trooper told me, "Justin, I don't think they're going to make it." It was at that time I called Mr. Dennison back, and I said, "Go to the scene and see your boy." I still to this day don't know if that's the right answer, or that was the right advice. For what felt like hours, my mind was racing, praying for some good news. I finally was told Matthew was airlifted to the Rhode Island Hospital, and Matthew was transported by rescue. Kevin was transported by rescue to Hasbro. At the conclusion of my shift, they drove straight to the hospital to see both boys. My mind still racing, I arrived at the hospital and was able to eventually see Kevin. Very briefly. Saw that he was alive, he was breathing, and he was talking. And he actually made a joke under all the medication that he was on. I then returned to the Dennison family, where I stayed praying and crying alongside them throughout the whole night, navigating every little update that came in. It was around noon the following day that I realized that I needed to be a high school hockey coach. I realized that I needed to tell the 16 other hockey players that look up to me as a role model what had happened. I called all the players and the family members to the locker room, where I told them every detail I knew. They needed to know the truth. They needed to know what happened. This was the hardest speech that I've ever had to tell in those four walls of that locker room. I watched as all these young men's faces turned white as ghosts and began to cry. We continued practicing throughout the next 4 weeks. Well, we probably weren't supposed to be. But what was right was these kids needed to be together. They needed each other, and they needed to know every minute about what was going to happen to Kevin and Matt. These updates never got easier as Matthew's conditions never got better. Every day, I would see one or two players shed a tear and then laugh it off and keep skating. March 9th, I called practice early, and I asked them all to meet me in the field house where I had mental health clinicians, support from the high school, waiting along with their parents. And I told them that their captain was no longer going to make it. And then he has finished fighting his fight. Those of you that don't know Matthew, he was the hardest hitting hockey player on our team. He won every little battle that we asked him to. And over those 4 weeks, he fought, and he fought, and he fought. Matthew passed away for the following day, surrounded by his family. And it hit very hard for not only us, the hockey players that I coach, but this whole community. The Rhode Island DOT and Ms. Andriozzi speak much about the ripple effect of these events. Our ripple effect went much further than the Dennison family and our hockey family. This tragedy impacted almost everybody, young or old, throughout this community, this state, New England, and surprisingly, we have heard from people in other countries. Matthew will forever have an impact on this community and will help us move forward as a society. Our hockey players and other students from West Warwick have pledged to be a part of the much-needed change to keep our roads safe. We as a community, as adults, need to do better in holding each other accountable and responsible. Simply stopping someone before they're getting behind the wheel of a vehicle intoxicated, or simply telling the driver to put their phone down and that it can wait. We all have to be a part of this change. When you see something, say something. Our department, all the other departments in the state of Rhode Island, we're out there actively looking for impaired drivers and distracted drivers. But we cannot do this alone. We cannot be everywhere. We need the community's help. Call the police and report a potentially drunk driver or distracted driver. Help us do our jobs in keeping these roads safe, and help us try to keep this from happening to any other family again. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Not only for today, but for all of the young lives that you change. Thank you. Almost 3 weeks ago, I got an email from a social worker, Kimberly May, at West Warwick High School. And Kimberly said to me, I have a group of students that want to do something. They need to do something. And could you come and speak with them? And I just naturally assumed that it was going to be one of the established groups within the high school. I assumed it was going to be the STAND group, students taking actions against negative decisions. And when I got there, I found out that that wasn't necessarily the case. It wasn't the established group. It was students that were ready to make their own stand, to make a change. And we are really fortunate to have one of those students with us. And I can introduce you now today to one of these young people, someone who's a classmate, a teammate, and a friend of Matthew's, Keegan Gormley.
Hello everyone, my name is Keegan Gormley. First off, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming today on behalf of the West Warwick Exeter West Greenwich hockey team and my fellow students from West Warwick schools. We're here today to talk about awareness for what's been happening and everything that has happened so far. Driving under the influence has affected me very much. It's affected me, my friends, and this whole entire community. Every day now, I look at life and look at these little moments that I take for granted. And I look at my friends, I look at my family, and I think I'm really lucky. And I now realize at any moment my life could change drastically. My late friend Matthew was killed by a drunk driver. And it made me so angry at the world, at life, just because they took somebody I called friend away from me. But I look at it now and I realize there's nothing I could have done. There's nothing Matt could have done. There's nothing anybody could have done. And nothing was going to change the outcome. And unfortunately, it was fate. Fate determines everything that happens in your life, and it can change at any moment. But with that being said, there's something that we can do now. There's something we can do to change the outcome. Change what's happening in our society today when it comes to drunk driving. There's something we can do to make a difference. I want to tell everybody here about the risk about drunk driving. And not only does it affect you, but it affects everyone and everything around you. It causes pain, pain that none of us need to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And every day and every night, I sit down and think about the what-ifs. What if they went a different way? What if they left early? What if they didn't even go at all to that clinic up in Connecticut? But now I'm trying to think about a new what. What next? What can I do to make a change? What can I do so less people have to go through the pain me and all of my friends and family had to go through? What's the next step in making everything get better? And when I say that, it's a lot more complicated than it sounds, but it's not going to get better right away. It's not going to change instantly. There's always going to be pain lurking, and it's always going to be there, no matter what. I was looking up fun facts just for a little thing to throw into this, and I found out that every single day in the United States, 28 people die from drunk driving. Every 52 minutes, a person is dying from somebody else's reckless decisions. When someone drives under the influence of a drug or another substance, they're compromised, and they're unaware, and most importantly, unsafe. Every time somebody drives drunk, they're at risk, and so are you. I want you to know what we can do to be better, to make this community a safer place. We need to be smart with our decisions when it comes to drunk driving. Like getting into a vehicle. For example, driving with somebody who has been drinking, or getting into a car when you have been drinking. Distractions are what get people hurt, and that's basically what driving under the influence is. It's a distraction. It takes your eyes off the road, it makes your thoughts cloudy, and it takes your ability to drive safely away. It compromises your head, and it makes you miss things, and that's why people get hurt when drunk driving, and why other people get hurt. I've been made aware of the consequences of driving intoxicated. I could get hurt, another person could get hurt. There's so many things that can change what happens when you're driving that way. People my age are the future of driving, and I don't want to lose another friend due to these reckless decisions. I don't want to lose a loved one due to it. So much pain is caused by driving this way, and it's these days, all teens are going to be on the roads. We're the future of driving and the future of society. If we don't make a change now, we're never going to make a change. And I don't want to see my loved ones, my family, my future children get hurt due to reckless drivers. We need to be smart with who we drive with, when we drive, and where. So with that being said, be smart, be safe, and never drive under the influence. Thank you.